Hello everyone, Author184 here, also known on Steam as Saint Killjoy, and I've got a treat for you tonight. I'm going to be streaming some Dungeon of Elements, but we're also talking with one of the members of Dice Inc. Michael, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks a lot for having me. I am Michael Hartman, the president of Frog Dice. We have been making video games for almost 20 years, and we've got something cool that we're about to be launching.
All right, and with us on the mic as well, we have Torpid. Say hello, Torpid.
Hello.
We have Jada Boy. Say hi.
Howdy.
And then we have, oh no, names. It's Terror, isn't it Terror?
Yeah, I think he actually looks like he fell off the line here.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. He might make his way back. Michael, is Kay available too? We can get her on this as well if she is. If not, that's cool.
No, she's not right now. She's actually taking care of some work-related stuff at the moment for tomorrow. So.
Oh yeah, she's a hard-working individual. How many folks work with there at Frog Dice Inc.?
We have 9 people. We have 7 full-time here in Lexington. We have 1 full-time in Texas, and we have a part-time person in Canada.
Oh, you got someone in Texas? Does that mean I can join the team too? Because I'm in Texas.
Theoretically, absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. So anyways, what I'm going to be playing tonight is Dungeon of Elements. It's one of Frog Dice's games. There's also Rainmaker, which I thoroughly enjoy and love. But I've done more Rainmaker than I have Dungeon of Elements, so I thought this would be a good time and a good excuse to play some more Dungeon of Elements. What we're going to be talking about tonight is we're going to be talking about Stash. And Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about Stash?
Stash is an online multiplayer RPG with turn-based combat, really amazing housing, and a world that players get to really affect and change. That's the simplest explanation. In a lot of ways, it's the graphical successor to Threshold, which is our 18-year-old text RPG that we've been running for a very long time. And so it's kind of bringing that game into the modern era, I guess, technologically. But both games have a distinct reason to be played. Threshold is role-play required, which is a very different experience than what you normally see in games. Obviously, it's text also, so that changes things. And then lore-wise, Threshold is 4,000 years in the past compared to Stash. So they both have a good reason for you to play either one. They have different elements, but Stash is obviously going to appeal to a broader group of people.
What are you kind of envisioning with Stash? Where do you think it's going to go, being a digital format as opposed to text-based?
Well, we're pretty much feeling like it's going to be the WoW killer that we've been waiting for. So, no, just kidding.
WoW, it's already dead now.
Yeah, so no, not that I would object to that, but no, that's not our goal. So, yeah, where does it fit in? Well, we figure that, people that play Threshold, a good portion of them will play Stash also, but it's obviously going to appeal to a lot of different people because it's not roleplay required. It does have an extremely rich world, because it does originates from our lore that is designed to support roleplay required gaming. So there is a lot of lore and everything like that, and we are going to run a lot of world events. We love running world events. It's a big thing for us. So there will be a lot of reasons to really be immersed in the game world rather than just, treating it like, you're chatting about sports while you're killing monsters.
Okay, when you say world events, what do you mean by world events?
Things like cities could get invaded, people, these void portals could open up, and there could be some huge event somewhere and players need to go take care of it, or the fact that players can take over outposts and rule them themselves, and then depending on what happens with players, we will react to it. Like, let's say a group of players takes over an outpost and they're really oppressive, and then they ally with some other clan who takes over another outpost, and they start enforcing all kinds of crazy rules. Well, we might create something to react to that so that other players can try to go against what they're doing, just all kinds of things. We really pay attention to what players are doing in our world, and we then try to have the world react to it so that players are like, wow, I was just doing this crazy thing, and here all of a sudden this has happened. Like players could do something really wacky, and maybe one of the cities will say, hey, that's a good idea. Now we've passed a law, and in our capital city, this is a new rule, and people will be like, oh my god, that's so cool. I was just doing this little thing. So that's the kind of stuff we mean by world events, things where we'll run NPCs, we'll make big things happen, and then sometimes it permanently changes the way the world works.
So you really want players to be involved in the creation of this world and actually have a lot of input and say in it.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, the first thing some people will be concerned, oh my god, I'm going to get griefed. Yeah, griefing can happen. We don't, like even in Threshold, sometimes people do things and it results in players being, quote, griefed. But in the long run, we definitely pay attention to what's going on and we protect against that. If players are doing things solely for the purpose of griefing others, we deal with that, including if we have to ban people, we do it. But if people are doing things truly out of a reason to just do something interesting, we give people a little bit of flexibility. Now, in Stash, that's not as big of a deal because unlike in Threshold, you can't just walk up to someone and PvP them and kill them and take their stuff. Threshold is a super hardcore game. You can literally walk up to someone in the world, anywhere, kill them, take all their stuff. And when they die, they lose a level. So Threshold's no screwing around. Like, in Threshold, when you die, you're bummed. It might take you, and especially if you're higher level, it might take you a month to gain that level. So PvP is no screwing around in Threshold. So Stash doesn't have anything like that. The PvP is much more consensual, and if you lose, you're not suffering a penalty unless you had a bet, unless you bet someone, or unless it's a clan war in which you're betting like honor, which eventually could result in your clan losing rank and status, which could also lose some clan abilities, and somebody else's clan gaining rank and status and gaining abilities. So, but for the most part, you can't just walk up to somebody and affect their gameplay. It's much more consensual and story-based, whereas in Threshold, like I said, it's kind of all bets are off, as long as there's roleplay involved. That's our rule in Threshold. You can do almost anything as long as there's actual roleplay involved.
Oh, nice. That's when do you think this alpha is going to be ready? Because you're already making me want to play it, man.
We're feeling really strong about December of this year for the alpha.
Oh, nice. So
not a tremendous amount of time. We've already been working on it. Some portion of our team has been working on it already for about 6-7 months. Our full team has been on it about 3 months. But some part of our team has been on it since about January.
Oh, nice. Nice. Now, we got the others on the line, and they've been hearing all this for the first time. So I'm kind of curious, guys. What kind of questions do you have after hearing just initially what he's describing here?
I think a lot of it was answered, quite honestly. I was curious. The first question I quite honestly will always ask about a game is PvP. That's the first thing I go to. That's just the type of player I am. I've played games like EVE or Dark Age of Camelot or any of those games in the past. And to me, that's what keeps me in it. But this one looks different. I like it. I like the turn-based feel. You don't really see turn-based anymore, man. And I like it. There's more strategy, and it's a different type of gameplay. So it looks very interesting. But I think you answered a lot of my questions, quite honestly.
Okay, cool. Well, you know what? Since you love PvP, if you don't mind, I'll talk about it a little more, because I think there's some things with what we're doing in PvP that are actually really awesome and that real PvP fans will love. So, first of all, the way that PvP works is, no matter what the method is, whether it's a one-on-one duel, a group duel, you went to matchmaking and got randomly placed against someone, or your clan's in a war and you got put in a battle, no matter what the system is, it takes a snapshot of your character. At the time that PvP fight begins, it takes a snapshot of your character. And by the way, a lot of what I'm explaining is really only possible because this is turn-based. So it takes a snapshot of your character and you go into combat. Now, there's a default. I think the default I think is either 30 seconds or a minute you have to decide your move, but you can agree with the other people you're fighting for longer. You could have 1 hour between turns, 12 hours. Theoretically, if it's a friend that you want to duel, you could set it to 24 hours, and it's everybody makes their move once an hour. Now, since it took a snapshot, you can go run around the world and keep playing. You could be in 7 other PvP battles at the exact same time if you wanted, with 7 different snapshots of your character, depending on what the turn timer is. Obviously, you won't have 7 with a 30-second, timer. You could theoretically, but that's going to be almost impossible. Because your character's going to end up just not doing anything. But if it was a long turn time, you could be in multiple PvP battles at the same time, and when it's your turn to make a move, you make a move, and then if you're waiting, you're waiting, or you're running around in the world, just running around in a dungeon, killing monsters until it's your turn. And I think that's an incredibly cool feature that no game has anything like that. The fact that you could, quote, PvP with friends, kind of like Words with Friends or something like that. You could have long duels where people really kind of think very hard strategically, or you could have more almost Twitch style, not Twitch the streaming, but Twitch mechanics, where it's 30 seconds to make your decision. So I think that'll be really cool. The ability for people to be in multiple PvP battles. I think it's really neat to have that kind of option.
It sounds really neat. I like the sound of I can PvP, but it's on a turn based, and so I can still do other things besides just PvP if I want to do it with someone specifically. I really do like that. That sounds like an awesome feature. In my opinion.
Yeah, and different, which is definitely key nowadays. Is different. A lot of the problems is it's the same mashup, different colors, different art style, same thing. So
right.
But it looks different. I mean, just a quick vid. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, and I took a quick look at it, and it does look different, and that does sound interesting, I will say. So yeah, it does sound really cool.
Jada, do you have any questions for Michael?
Absolutely. Mostly regarding, as Michael mentioned previously, Stash, and these are my own words, is kind of a spiritual successor to, and because of the success of Threshold.
Yes, that's right.
So my questions are more pertaining to the similarities and the connectivity, because Threshold, as a MUD, very text-based, is clearly going to be more hardcore, more mature community, all the great things about MUD, especially something that's lasted as long as Threshold. Stash is clearly going to be a more visual, softer spiritual successor of Threshold, but will it have any of the things that make MUDs as great as they are, such as all the variety of ways to play, perhaps even player-made content or modability, or adding in their own content?
To answer the first part, or the last part first, your house, your BOO is what we call it, your base of operations, that is one of the 2 core features of the game. It's combat and your house. Everything else, every other feature basically supports those 2 features in some way. So your house will have insane customization and ability to upgrade and decorate and have it look exactly how you want and show off your accomplishments and all kinds of stuff like that. So in that way, it is somewhat creating your content. It is unlikely, at least at this time, we don't have any plan for people to create their own graphical assets and upload them or anything like that, unless that becomes something that we learn about and we're like, hey, you know what? We could totally support this. I know that Unity does support things called asset bundles, where you can stream assets to people from various locations. The challenge, of course, is you have to do some level of policing what that content is, or else it could get... Honestly, for us, the biggest concern would be trademark and copyright violations in the content because they could get us in legal trouble. So people creating their completely from scratch their own content, like their own 3D models, I would say is unlikely. But creating an extremely customized house, and perhaps more importantly, creating their own stories through the way they run their clan, the way they decide to interact with the world, I think that's where people can have the biggest impact as far as affecting the world, and that's something that's really big in Threshold. The players affect the world tremendously. Whether it's, I think we started off the game with like 11 gods, and then players did some things, and it resulted in 3 new gods, being born. And then over the couple years, players did different things, and I think 3 more came into being.